Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cam'Ron Johnston. No Tyler Britton today, but we are luckily enough joined by one Jacob Boyers. Kentucky basketball finally tipped off in the Bluegrass against Kentucky Wesleyan. The Cats found a way to have a 71-point win, 123 to 52 over Kentucky Wesleyan. I'm not sure what else we could have imagined from the very first exhibition game. I know I want to pump the brakes a little bit because it is an exhibition game and none of these stats count. But Jacob, tell me what you were thinking about. How excited are you after having a 71-point win?
Oh, extremely. I don't think you can be anything but excited. Mark Pope era got off to, I think, a picture-perfect start, right? We got to see a lot of that modern-style basketball that we talked so much about in the last episode, and I couldn't think of a better way for this era to get underway. We got to showcase a lot of different guys that we were excited to see. Weren't really anybody that I felt like particularly played bad. Now, obviously, it is just D2 Kentucky Wesleyan. Like, you should roll, but third biggest victory in UK history. So, I mean, I don't care who you're playing. I think you got to be a little excited.
Yeah, and just seeing some of those teams that have put up 70-plus point wins, 2014, 2015 team had a win similar to that. The 2011, 2012 team. I mean, you're talking about teams that went to Final Fours, team that hung banners for the Cats. So it's great company to be in. I know one of the topic points for the offseason was trying to figure out what this starting lineup was going to be. We kind of had the four of them penciled in with Lamont Butler, Jackson Robinson, Andrew Carr, and Amari Williams. We were kind of figuring out who was going to get that fifth spot. Looks like Otega Owe has gotten a nod through the first two games of the season. And to be honest with you, he was probably the biggest surprise, at least in that first game against Kentucky Wesleyan. I thought he was one of the standouts of the game. He was very easily getting to the cup. Granted, like we said, this is a D2 team, but he impressed me a lot in the first game. What do you think about him?
Yeah, agree completely. It's funny. That's one of the guys we didn't even mention on the last pod going through all these guys. And, he was actually one of the guys, I didn't say his name, but when I kind of was insinuating, like, there's going to be some guys that played a lot of college basketball that I think are going to be, eighth, ninth man off the bench. Like, he was kind of in my head as that guy, but, I thought the starting job would go to Berea, but you can clearly see why he's in there. He, is a guy that can get to the rim. He shoots it better than I kind of thought. Obviously, just two quick exhibition games, but and then his defense. I think one thing we learned that this team really surprised me was I don't think we're going to be great defensively by any stretch, but with the two guards on the perimeter, I think that definitely gives you a lot there on the defensive side.
Yeah, we'll dive in more a little bit on the defense when we talk about that game against Minnesota State. I think that's where we kind of saw some more of the defensive lapses. But sticking with the Kentucky Wesleyan game, and we had 8 players in double figures. Talk about moving the ball, spreading the ball around, getting everybody involved. Andrew Carr is in double figures. Amari Williams, Otega Owe, Lamont Butler, Jackson Robinson, Kobe Brea, Ansley Almanor, and Trent Noah all found their way to double figures. I mean, 21 made threes on 42 attempts, shooting 50% from the field. I know we were talking about how we were going to shoot a lot of threes the whole offseason, but shooting 42 and making 21 of them, I'm not sure how much more excited I could be seeing a new modern offense.
Yeah, it's exciting. And, like, the other part of it is, like, I was looking at it, we had 39 fast break points, and a lot of that was coming from the three. Like, we're a team, when we get the ball, we're going to get out and run. We're going to play that modern style, right? It's either threes or layups. If you look at the shot chart, just beautiful. Not something we've seen here in the Bluegrass State as of late, but, no long twos. I think they had, like, one mid-range jumper that they attempted all game, and it was Jackson Robinson, which you'll take that. But, 21 made threes, a lot of points in transition, either getting to the rim for a layup or kicking it out for the three. There's nothing better.
Yeah, I mean, that modern offense, I looked at the shot chart. I think we had one just from outside the free throw line and then 2 on the right wing. So you're talking about 3 mid-range shots as opposed to 42 three-pointers taken.
Yeah.
And that's just the way college basketball is. That's the way college basketball is trending. You see teams getting to the Elite Eight, to the Final Four. This is why. See teams like Oakland knock off teams like Kentucky last year. This is the recipe to do things like that. And right now, we're not going to be the most athletic team. We have an older team. I couldn't tell you the last time we looked at a Kentucky lineup and you look at it and you say, fifth year guy, fifth year guy, fifth year guy, fifth year guy, and then a junior in the starting lineup. Four of those guys have already scored 1,000 points throughout their college career. I mean, it's great to see. I'm not sure what more you can really expect from these guys, at least to start the season, how they have.
Yeah, and another like eye-popping stat is how well this team moves the ball without turning it over. I mean, 32 assists to 5 turnovers. It's just the way Pope has these guys rolling offensively and like within rhythm. Everybody's playing within themselves, but they're also so unselfish. You'll see, we saw plenty of guys pass up open shots for an even better look, and that's to me what's most exciting about the offense.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw one player have more steals in a game than the entire team had turnovers.
That's
Lamont had 6 steals, and we only had 5 turnovers as a team. He
yeah.
also added on to that with having 6 assists as well. I mean, he had an incredible game. He had 12 points altogether, and then he had 6 boards, 6 assists, 6 steals. I mean, talk about impacting the game in every single way. I was talking about this, with some family members, and I think everybody who knows me knows I'm a huge Rajon Rondo fan. And what he's bringing to this team has kind of given me a little bit of those Rondo vibes. Right now, he's probably a little bit of a better shooter than Rondo was in high school. Maybe that steals record is in jeopardy. Rondo still has the single season record for steals in a season. Maybe Lamont's coming for that title. I'd like to see him give it a run for it, but I still like my guy Rondo to stay on
Yeah.
top.
Yeah, I definitely don't think this is going to be the last time we're walking away from a game talking about Lamont Butler getting steals. I think he's going to have quite a few games with 5 or 6, and may even top it a couple times. He is just all over the place defensively and always where he should be. So
I know Mark Pope said he can pick up full court whenever he wants to. Whenever he wants to, he has the green light to do that. I think that kind of shows how much trust Mark Pope has in him. Over the offseason, he said he's not losing any sleep over any of the point guards that Lamont's going to have to guard just because of how comfortable he feels with him on the defensive end. I can't think of a better way to have an elite defensive point guard and then driving into the lane to an elite defensive center in Amari Williams. I think the tandem of having those two guys that have seen and played a lot of college basketball is really going to help anchor this defense in what other ways might be a little suspect.
yeah, I agree. As like 5 guys on the floor, you could argue like this team's probably not very good defensively, especially with some of the lineups we roll out there. Especially when some of the freshmen play. But to your point, when you have an elite level defender at the top of the key, guarding, outside the 3 point line, and then you have a rim protector on the inside, like they're going to make up for a lot of times where, a guy gets beat. You can play Travis Perry or Trent Noah a little more and let him get beat defensively because you got Amari Williams down there to help out. And then if somebody tries to kick out, you got Lamont Butler getting his hands in passing lanes. So
Exactly. I think that's been the biggest, learning curve you've kind of seen with Trent Noah and Travis Perry is why they're not getting on the floor a little bit earlier is because of the defensive side of the ball, being able to move laterally side to side with some of these guys. And we've played two D2 teams at this moment, so I mean the competition's only going to stiffen and get harder. This team, I mean, we're looking at it right now. 2 games in, none of them officially count on the stats book. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and transition over to the Minnesota State game. The Kentucky Wildcats win 98-67, a 31-point margin of victory in this game. Same starting lineup as the previous one. One note about this game: Kirk Risa finally starts playing. He didn't play in that very first game. Injury, Pope said he was fine. Just an exhibition game. Kind of want to hold him out. Don't want to risk anything for a game that's not going to count throughout the season. But tell me what you thought about this Minnesota State game.
yeah, obviously it was all everybody was talking about, but Minnesota State won the D2 national championship last year. Like this team is better than some D1 schools, kind of the OVC or whatever that conference is called nowadays. Like
Yeah.
this team could finish top 4 in that conference. So while you should roll like Kentucky did, it is a test, and it was nice to see them come out, kind of struggle a little bit early, playing a little sloppy, missing shots, but just like that, they flipped the switch 21-3 run to end the first half. Like, couldn't draw it up any better. And then they just kind of rolled and saw more of what we saw in the Wesleyan game. Maybe a little worse defensively, obviously, giving up 44 in the second half. But I couldn't ask for a better first two games to start.
Yeah, I know Mark Pope said he wanted to see his team challenged. You kind of want to see this team exposed and see, what they have to work on more. I think one of the biggest things they have to work on, especially with Amari Williams exiting this game early, they got to find that extra rebounder because it doesn't seem like at the moment we have that guy, that physical down low threat to consistently get rebounds. Brandon Garrison looks like he's working towards that. Andrew Carr is not necessarily your big man rebounder. So that was what I think I took away from this game as like the biggest exposure point. I don't know about you. What did you think about the biggest exposure point?
Yeah, there's going to be some teams that give us matchup problems with big men, especially, if Amari Williams or Garrison, like, I don't expect them to be hurt this year, but there's going to be games where they're in foul trouble and you can only play one of them. I did like what I saw from Garrison. You know, Former McDonald's All American, obviously had that disgusting dunk in the second half. I can't believe that young man tried to jump with him. But, I mean, that is probably the biggest thing is, where do those rebounds come? You know, but we just got to think differently than how we thought with Cal. I know we talked about it last time, but this may not be the biggest, most athletic team, but we're going to play some small ball lineups that other teams are going to have a hard time defending when they got a big man out there. So I think we just got to kind of condition ourselves that this team, might give up a lot of rebounds. I know that was one of the things Pope was what he said he was most displeased with. But I think they'll get better, but kind of okay with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know at some point we're in a small ball lineup in this game where Ansley was the five. And Ansley's
Yeah,
only 6'7", 6'8".
I think there was like three or four
That's a
possessions where they had Trent Noah out there at the five.
yeah. That's a that's a very small ball lineup. You can do that against a D2 team who
Yeah.
their center is probably 6'9". But here coming soon when the competition stiffens up, hopefully they said X-rays came back for Amari and everything looked good, everything looked clean.
Yeah.
They're going to take a couple extra just to be safe. So hopefully we get him back. I mean, it's a rock to have. A guy is going to clean the glass, guy finishes around and inside the paint. Transitioning to that, Kerr Kriisa, very first game, only had 3 points in this game, but did a lot of other things. He had 4 rebounds and 6 assists. And he's kind of just like in the best type of way, he's a gnat. He's a pest.
Yeah.
What do you think about his first minutes in Kentucky Blue?
Yes, I mean, same thing. I didn't, I wasn't expecting a ton out of him, coming off the injury. He still played 16 minutes. To your point, only 3 points, but, rebounded well. And that, I think that's, good comparison or analogy. I mean, you heard Luka Doncic talk about how much he hated him. Like, this is a guy that's not going to be scared of anybody. What did you think about him wearing Kerr on the back of his jersey? That was, no,
Yeah,
I don't know. Have we ever seen
he wore that in Arizona. I know he wore that in Arizona, so I wasn't sure if he was going to rock with Kriisa or if he was going to go with Kerr, but I know he did do that at Arizona. But it did still kind of shock me because I can't tell you the last Kentucky player that I've seen with their first name, or if we've had one.
I
There
can't
might be
imagine we
somebody
had
that
one.
I'm missing, but I can't remember one. And with Kerr's return, you saw the downtick in Travis Perry's playing time. So I think it showed you a clear, 1A, 1B option coming off the bench at guard. Travis Perry didn't get to play until the second half with Kerr in. What do you think about that? Are you surprised by that,
Yeah,
or do you think that was what you expected?
not really. I think that's kind of what we all expected. Like, Travis Perry's going to have his moments here. How many of those will be this year? Who knows? But it's hard to keep a fifth year senior, you know, on the bench further down behind a true freshman that, as we talked about from the last game, like, is going to struggle defensively. Um, so Travis Perry will have his time. It'll come. He'll continue to get better, and I think get better on the defensive side of the ball. But I expect Kirk Kriisa to kind of be the main backup point guard all year.
I say with him and Kerr, I feel like Kerr and Lamont, I feel like we definitely have a first time I can say we have a good rebounding backcourt. Feels like for the
Yeah.
most part throughout the past couple years, we've had guards not necessarily that were unwilling to rebound, but they just didn't with Cal's system trying to necessarily get out and go and just push it like that. It's good to see like I said, Kerr in this game had 4 rebounds. Lamont's always in there. Lamont had 6 the game before. I mean, these are both guys who were 6'1" and 6'3", and they're down there getting rebounds. So hopefully, stuff like that continues and they give the guys help if Amari is out for any length of time.
Yeah, and like they're able to do that too because all five guys can pretty much handle the ball up the floor. It allows Lamont Butler to get down there and get a rebound and then kick to whoever. There was a play where Andrew Carr got the ball, caught the ball at midcourt, dribbled down and made a layup. Brandon Garrison had that coast to coast. He didn't finish it,
Yeah.
but like having those big guys be able to handle the ball like that's definitely a threat and allows those guys to go down and fight for rebounds a little more.
Yeah, I think Brandon tried to Euro step from about half court on that layup. He might have done that one just a tad too early, but it was good to see that he felt confident enough to be able to do
Yeah,
that. And it's good to see that he's still putting up those 3-point shots. The shot looks good. It just seems
yeah,
like right now he's 0 for 3 from 3, but you can tell those are going to fall. And like Pope said, he's never going to pull these guys for shooting. He's going to pull them for not shooting. And I think that was very evident in this game. We started off, we really couldn't hit anything. We finished 13 of 37 from 3, but in the first half, like the twos weren't falling either. We shot
yeah,
42.9% from the field just on twos as well. And then the second half, we turned that around and shot 65%. So I think you kind of saw what Pope's trying to teach these guys. It's, hey, man, we're going to miss shots. It's just going to happen as part of the game. Keep shooting. We'll find ways to knock them down. We'll keep them moving.
yeah. He'll keep those guys confident. He'll keep them up, ready to roll. With Cal, we saw it where your shooters, when they missed one shot, they were looking at the bench, realizing like they were probably coming out. That's not going to be the case here. Pope's going to keep these guys extremely confident, and Jackson Robinson was I don't have it right in front of me, but what did he start the game like 1 for 5, and then he finished with 8 made threes. Like it just shows, you know, just because they have a slow start doesn't mean anything. Pope's going to keep feeding them the ball, and they'll hit the shots at some point.
Yeah, I really think Jackson took to heart what the NBA scouts told him, and they told him, he had to work on that 3-point game. He comes out here and he hits 8 threes,
8 of
shoots
them,
8 for
yep.
12. And I mean, he looks so confident doing it. I know at one point they didn't show it on the broadcast, but they said it. He shot it, immediately turned around, looked at the UK bench, kind of Steph Curry esque. Well, I'm not putting that type of that type of label on him for sure. It is good to see that confidence from him, especially a guy you're expecting to be a leader moving forward.
Absolutely. And just touch on one more thing, like, that run to end the first half. Yeah, this is a D2 school, but like I think that we're going to see a lot of that from this team this year. There might be stretches where we can't buy a bucket and we're down, 10 against somebody that's pretty good in the SEC on a Tuesday night, but then all of a sudden we're going to win the last 8 minutes of the first half. Their last 6 made field goals of the first half last night were threes. It just like that, 18 points, and we're rolling.
Exactly. I say we shot 8 of 24 from 3-point land in the first half.
Yeah.
I think we finished on like a 6 of 8 run in
Yeah.
that last 7 minutes. It was a 22-20 game. We were getting tested the first 13 minutes of game. 7 minutes left. Minnesota State's got a chance to score and take the lead. And you're kind of sitting there like, all right, we're getting tested, but at some point I want to see us put our foot on the gas. And they really did that to end the half. At halftime they went up 43-23. I'm not sure what much more you could have asked from them, especially to end the half. That kind of showed you, they've got spurt ability where they
Yep.
can just, like you were saying, go on. There might be 4 minutes where, they haven't hit a single three, and the next thing you know, you look up and we just put 18 points on the board in 2 minutes. So that's a good thing about this Pope offense, but there's going to be goods and bads with it. You're going to have to learn to take it in stride, but I say right now we're kind of reaping the benefits. Hopefully that keeps moving forward.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun because you're never going to feel like you're out of a game. There might be games we should feel like we're out of it, but just knowing how quick this team can get hot and just go on a run, we're going to always feel like, if there's 4 minutes left and we're down 12, heck, we're just a couple stops away and transition threes away from being right back in that game and possibly even leading. So, you know, that's going to be a big change. I feel like.
Exactly. There was so many times during the Cal era where you saw like we get down to 4 minutes left in the game, we're down nine, and you're looking at it, you're like, man, we just don't really have the offense to be able to consistently get stops and make threes like that.
Well,
And I
like
think it's good.
yeah, sorry, but yeah, especially those two Oscar years, you just knew the team was struggling to score 60 points a game. It felt like, if they were down 10 with 4 minutes, it was like there could be nobody on the floor guarding us. We're not going to score 10. We're going to throw it to Oscar, let him kick it back out, throw it back down. It was like the Jackie Moon thing, and then finally Oscar would go up. But yeah, that's out, and really outside of Dillingham last year, you never felt like there was that consistency to get buckets and stretches. So that is very exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. We had two of the better 3-point shooters in UK history last year, and we wouldn't start them. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, I would argue we had maybe three of the best in the Cal era on one
yeah,
team, and very rarely were all three of those guys on the floor together.
it wasn't allowed. Reed, Rob, and Antonio were not allowed on the floor together. But luckily, moving forward, as we said, they were running Ansley and even Trent Noah at the five in this game. It looked like
Yeah,
there was no lineup that Pope is afraid of trying. Of course, that's going to be, matchup dependent. We're not going to go into, Alabama and do that with some of their bigs that they
yeah,
have, or doing that against Cooper Flag and Duke. So it's going to be very matchup dependent. But at least he's shown that he's willing to try different things to see. Hey, if these guys are going to go get me 15 points in a minute and 30, and I can get Amari and Andrew Carr a rest.
yeah,
That's huge. Getting guys like that rest while being able to still stay in games. So you saw that in the past with Calipari teams, where, like you said, if Oscar goes to the bench, we weren't finding buckets, we weren't finding ways to score. The next thing you know,
yeah.
he's got to come back in, and he's still gassed from the first 24 straight minutes that he played. So it's good to have that depth, and I think that'll be one of the key things moving forward, especially once we get to SEC play.
Yeah, and I think it's a style of play too, obviously, and that's where it's really credited to Pope. With Cal, we would have at times three guys that couldn't shoot, sometimes even four. It felt like back in the Toppin years, he would play Toppin at the three and have two big men down low that couldn't shoot, and then you would have Severe Wheeler. So, like, you're never feeling out of it, but also you can get guys a rest because you're going to rotate them with guys that can shoot. So yeah, you might lose the defense for a little bit, but you can get Amari a break. You're bringing in Ansley. You're bringing in, Trent Noah at times, I think, and you're going to have guys that can shoot the ball. So while you may be giving up some points, hopefully you're trading twos for threes at that point, but it's just a whole different style of basketball, and it's obviously a credit to Pope.
And just think about it. A lot of those guys that you're bringing off the bench, these aren't freshmen that are, got that like deer in the headlights, ready to get, pulled first mistake like they would with Cal. You're talking about Kobe Brea coming off the bench, who led the NCAA in 3-point percentage last year. You're talking about Ansley Almanor, who was first team all conference for Fairleigh Dickinson, Kirk Risa. I mean, you're talking about guys that have played 4+ years of college basketball. Those are the guys that are coming off the bench. They're not going to have moments that are too big for them. They've all played in tournament games to some capacity. This isn't like, bringing in, Lance Ware off the bench and you're sitting there and you're like, what? Can you give me 2 minutes? Can you give me 2 minutes? That's basically what you felt like with some of those guys coming off the bench here. I feel super comfortable with a lot of these guys. But getting back to what we were talking about earlier, really it just feels like the defensive side of the ball is where this team's going to – I think that'll take us as far as we need to go. This offense is going to be really good, and it's going to be able to keep us in almost every game, if not all of the games. But what's going to take us to that next level is if we can find ways to get stops on defense.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, can you just be good enough, right? Like, this team doesn't have to come out and be, shut down. I don't think anybody's expecting them to be like 2015 Kentucky, where, we're holding UCLA to 7 points at halftime. But, this team's going to score a lot of points. Can you make enough stops and big stops down the stretch in games to really win? And I think they can. I think Pope will find ways, he'll mix in different defenses. You know, I think we'll go through spurts where we're pressing, then we'll pull the pressure off, then we'll go to zone, then we'll go back to man. So I think he's going to find ways to hide it. And then I think, kind of to our point earlier, I think they'll be good enough just because you have two elite defenders that I think late games, even if Jackson Robinson gets beat, to my point earlier, Amari Williams is, there on the backside to help. And then if they kick it out, once Amari steps up, you got maybe one of the best steal machines here since Rajon Rondo. So I think they have enough.
Exactly. We talked about it. Tega always defensive presence. He's a very good perimeter defender as well. So you're talking about, three of your five defensive guys, three of your five starting lineup guys are good defenders. It's more like we talked about when you roll to the bench. Because Kerr's a very willing defender. I'm not going to say he's the best defender, but he's very willing and he's very, pesky. But it's more, I think, if we have to get into those roles where Travis and Trent are playing a lot, I feel like that'll probably be where you start getting to the point of having concerns on the defense end of the ball.
Yeah, and that might be the times where Pope, throws out his zone. If he realizes he's got to get Lamont and Owe breaks and he's bringing in Travis Perry and Kerr and whoever else, that might be the 3 or 4 minute stretch where he's running the zone to kind of, one, give the other team another look, but two, you can hide those guys a little better. So I think he'll do enough. But the thing, that's exciting to your point, our starting five, I do feel like we have three really good defenders. So late in games, our offense is obviously, we think, going to be elite. Late in games, you can have three really good defenders on the floor, barring, foul trouble.
Well, with the exhibition games being wrapped up and 2 wins now in Kentucky's column, that will not officially be in the Kentucky column because now none of these stats count and or matter. Your Kentucky Wildcats will be facing Wright State on Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't know too much about Wright State. We're going to talk about the parts of them that we do know. They were 18-14 last season. Their season ended by the hands of the Northern Kentucky Norse. They scored 86.5 points per game, and it looks like they're not going to be returning 2 of their top scorers from that season either.
Yeah, don't know too much about them. I did watch them a handful of times last year and years prior, just being an NKU fan. Yeah, they obviously play a up-tempo style of basketball, scoring 86, so it'll be interesting to see a team try to play a similar style to Kentucky against Kentucky. Be interesting to see. I think this will be a good test of our defense early on. So I am excited for it. They returned their leading rebounder. That's honestly about all I know from them, other than the fact they lost to Oakland last year they beat Oakland by 21 points last year. So the team that beat us in the tournament, this one whooped them.
So what you're saying is this would be a scary team for us to see in the tournament last year. We would have been on upset watch just like we were this time last year.
Yeah, instead of Jack Golke, there would have been some other random white guy that became super famous and got to go to Barstool.
Just splashing threes because we did no film study on the team the entire week.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, the Kentucky game is going to be on Monday at 7 p.m. But before then, on Saturday, 4-star guard out of Washington, D.C., Caden Lewis will be making his commitment. Kentucky is in the running. I've seen some crystal ball projections. It looks like Kentucky is favored at the moment. Jacob, do you have anything to add to that?
Nothing really in depth other than obviously it would be a huge one for Pope. He's gotten the in-state guys. Be nice to really kind of lock down that first big time out-of-state recruit. So, like you said, all the crystal balls, not all of them, but most of them are picking him to Kentucky. So, let's hope Saturday we have something to celebrate while we get ready to watch Tennessee beat us by 50.
Yeah, especially with already having Jasper Johnson committed. It'll be nice to get that backcourt locked up, especially knowing you're going to be losing Kerr, Lamont, Jackson Robinson. You're going to be losing all of these guys. So it's going to be almost kind of like how we did this year, a brand new team rolling in next year. We're used to that as Kentucky fans, but It's going to start changing down the road, but with how many grad transfers we have, you're going to see new guys coming in, and I'm really looking forward to potentially having a Caden Lewis and Jasper Johnson in the same backcourt. But we'll figure that out on Saturday as he makes his commitment. And then we will be here the following day after the Kentucky game, breaking down the Kentucky Wright State game, the first official game in the Mark Pope era. With all that being said, everybody have a great day. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.